Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I am the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Tonight we have Derek Johnson in the house, everybody. So please, if you have a question for him, he's like, sorry, guys. This is my typical PSAs, but we know how it goes with Derek. We did a Q&A last time, so I apologize. Probably won't get to it tonight. Maybe we'll try. I don't know, but just kick back, enjoy, listen. Derek brings a lot of great information. I'm going to talk to him right here in the beginning about the parade that we saw on Saturday. What a great, beautiful parade that was, and how amazing that we got to witness that, right? So that doesn't happen ever, not in my lifetime or any of your lifetime. So, and who knows when it'll happen again. So that was pretty powerful. So everybody, I do apologize, but I don't know if we'll get to Q&A today. But if you guys come into this podcast late, or you want to send it to somebody that's, trying to wake up or on the fence, whatever it may be, we are being listened to in over 100 countries. So please, everybody, go follow us on one of the podcast hosts or the social medias. And that way you can get the latest updates of the podcast. And those are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music, and the social medias are Jenny Jareed Facebook at Jenny_Jareed X, at J Jareed Rumble, at J Jareed Instagram, at J Jareed True Social, the Revival of America right here on Telegram, the Revival of America on YouTube, and then last but not least, the official J Jareed over on TikTok. I am doing a little bit better on TikTok, but again, those are just short little video clips. So, and typically what I'm doing with that is I'm just kind of giving the show lineup or the weekly midweek show lineup. So go follow any of those, everybody. Also too, if you get a random text or an email or something, a DM saying they are me, know that I will not randomly reach out to you and ask if you are ready for the scare event, about finances, about crypto, or anything like that. If you guys get that, please block, report, please let me know so I can make sure they're not here in my channel. Also, to everybody, there's a lot of noise, a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of BS going on out there. Stay out of it. Hang on to the positives because there's a lot of positives. We are winning this battle, everybody. We are winning this war. So stay out of the noise, and just be careful who you listen to, who you're following, and what you're putting into your mind because. A lot of people, or I'm seeing some people that were walking this line with this on this side of it, and now they're going to the dark side of it. So please be careful. This is a crazy mind war for sure. And if your mind isn't strong enough to handle some of these conversations, just get out of it. If you hear something you don't like, exit out of that room, exit out of that chat, whatever it may be. Protect yourself, everybody, because I do believe we're probably going to see we're going to see some rocky days. What that looks like, how long it's going to last, who knows? But just get prepared mind wise. And obviously, stay focused, stay vigilant, eyes on God, and we're going to be okay. We are going to be okay, but it has to be this way, right? Because there are still people out there living like everything's still normal, nothing's going on, which blows my mind, but that's okay. They'll see it, right? And then when they do see it, we have to be that calm in the storm because we will get those people that are going to ask us, how did you know? Da 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 da. So just everybody, please be strong in the mind and stay out of the bullshit noise because we're getting confirmations, we're getting vindications of a lot of the stuff that we have been talking about for a long time. So hang in there, everybody. We're going to get through this. And like I said, we're going to be okay. Also, to everybody, if you have a personal story or a journey you would like to share with the audience on the podcast and have your voice heard, please email me at troasubmissions@yahoo.com. That's troasubmissions@yahoo.com. And we'll get your voices and your story heard on the show because it's your voices, your stories that are going to help shape this new world we're coming into. And TROA is the Revival of America. I created my own submissions for these stories because they were getting buried in my regular email at the Revival of America@yahoo.com. So do your submissions to that. If you want to email me at the Revival of America@yahoo.com for something else, a question or whatever, please do that. I will respond via email, but I will not randomly reach out to you. So also too, everybody sign up for the newsletter. It is free. It gives you the weekly lineup of the guests with the times and also the latest updates of the podcast. And that is at the revivalofamerica.com. So go sign up for it there. And we typically send those out early Monday morning, and that way you'll get the weekly show lineup. So with that, everybody, Derek is in the house. He's going to give us 2 hours of his time this evening. So please, like I said, I don't know that we'll get to Q&A, but I really think that we need to talk about some of the things that are going on. And I want to start, Derek, with the first of all, I want to say how you doing, and then we can maybe go into you breaking it down for us, the military parade, the awesomeness we saw on Saturday. What's up, my friend?
Just enjoying the moment, So
You
can't
enjoying the
complain.
moment, the confirmations of indications?
Well, it's just I was talking to a friend of mine today, and I'm like, it shouldn't be called a proof because it's just straight up military laws, military orders, and stuff that military should know, uh, especially veterans. But we are in a true moment in history where everything is being reset, but also um, not only draining the swamp, but also setting the bar for the future. And I mean, President Trump hadn't really talked about it a whole lot lately. He had his 1776 commission report, but he had mentioned that if colleges and schools, this is way back, and it's going to be on the precedent once we get on the other side of everything. If colleges and schools don't start teaching our history, they'll be defunded. Their federal funding will go away. So when your federal funding goes away, you'll get in shape really quick. But right now, I just put a new shirt up today for all the patriots that I have a little bit different kind of a attitude towards everything. I think you can be um, I think you can be confident without being braggadocious in another way, but I think you can also be braggadocious without being cocky. And you can already know right now is the thing. That's why I get so mad and frustrated. I get mad and frustrated for people because so many people don't want to put in the time to read and study what is layers of information, but it's layers of information that, and I use that term loosely because I hate the word information like I hate the word intel. A lot of podcasters will use those terms out of context when, laws and orders, there's multiple kinds of laws and orders, but there's a unique set of laws and orders that gives President Trump this authority. And that's why Republicans, conservatives, but especially patriots, don't need to be replicating what the liberals look like right now. And also, a lot of those are never Trumpers, rhinos that are looking atrocious right now. And so you don't want to replicate that because to them, that's also ammo. They go, well, you look just as dumb. So, you don't want to look like that. There's an absolute blueprint in place and it's already been validated. And I know it sounds braggadocious, my other word again, but you know, it. I am the one with the books and the outline. I tell people, if you can't afford the books, everything's on my pages. But at this point, when I first started, you had to scroll all the way back and start with the first post. And I did everything in the chronological as we went. But now it's kind of sporadic because I'd bounce back and pull stuff from way back, and then have a post. The next post may be live time, but it's all there. And I'm not knocking good podcasters either, but there's just a lot of chaos right now that needs to be quelled, for the sake of the strength needs to be in numbers right now. And to have strength in numbers, you have to have strength in mind. You have to have confidence in mind. You have to have confidence. And President Trump, he wouldn't be playing golf with the ridicule that's already coming from the left. He wouldn't be playing golf if this wasn't pre-planned. All right, because we are in time of war. This is a different kind of war, because it's still war via military laws and orders. He wouldn't be at the golf course if this wasn't pre-planned. If everything wasn't going smooth. Um, so what's taking place is awesome, and it gets validated daily. And that word sucks in another manner because it is just what military does, especially good military. We have been infiltrated in the past, ain't no doubt. We've had a lot of infiltrators come in, no doubt. But that still revolves people. Organizations don't corrupt organizations. People do. Corrupt, like corporations don't corrupt corporations. People do. People corrupt things. So that's why we have to have transparency, accountability, responsibility, honesty, but also communication. All those components go together. And then when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing on the front and in the middle, then if there ever is something in the middle, when you know everything that's supposed to function properly and accordingly, then when there is a discrepancy, it can be handled accordingly. You don't let it slide. Like President Trump was saying not terribly long ago, he said, when these incompetent idiots would be removed from a spot, they would just put them in another spot somewhere. So I mean, it's kind of humorous in another kind of way, and isn't it? But you got to make some humor out of it. But it'd be like taking a mechanic and then turning around and making them an accountant. I mean, they have no experience, or take it out, come in the shop, and all right, you're in the pool now. Tools, good luck. Fix my truck, by the way. And so that's what these idiots did in the swamp all these years. So some of this stuff you should applaud. It's mainly distractions, but for the normies out there, applaud it. Applaud that these people are mad and pissed and angry that their swamp has been drained. I mean, that is your bragging rights. All right. But the other portion, if it is a distraction piece, that's where you got to dig deep into special operations. And that's why part 2 of my book is heavy special operations. And once you have a foundation in what President Trump has put into place, I was thinking today another way to say stuff. I'm always trying to find another way to say things. When you hear laws and orders so much that we need to separate. The law is what has been in the books. It's already been there. Like the Title 10 right now, the last overhaul of Title 10 was in August 1956. All right. August 1956. Elvis Presley was just starting. All right. So think about that. That's how long that Title 10 has been in place and the last overhaul of it. Now, we had military law before that, but that was the last overhaul of it, meaning amendments to it and changes to it and adapting where we were in history. So
what was
there's
that date? What was the date again, Derek?
August 1956.
Okay.
So those are laws. So like Section 1550, Title 50, all your sections or wherever they are. But the Title 50 is when you need to go see, okay, what year was Title 50 overhauled? So all of these laws have been in the books for years. The orders are what comes with each president. So the Title 10 order from President Trump with Executive Order 13912 from March 27, 2020, that's an order under the law. So laws and orders, and maybe I should have broken that down a long time ago, but there's so much to break down, but that's an order. So when you hear these liberals out there telling military, first off, it's humorous that any civilian is trying to give word to the military. Don't take unlawful orders. These people can't even name anything from the Constitution. All right. And the Declaration and our foundation. All right. So that's already humorful. And it's also why some, not all veterans, but some veterans look atrocious because even some of them don't know. And they're the very ones who should know. And I'm not backing down from that because veterans, we know how to talk to each other. All right. It don't matter if I served a day in the military. I didn't, but it doesn't matter. A law is a law, an order is an order. And if they were unlawful, then all President Trump would have to do in a normal setting, even though it's not, but for hypothetical, I hate hypotheticals, but just for it, all President Trump would have to do is say, well, why did all of you past Congresses, all of you swamp creatures, all of you incompetent morons, how come all of you kept this in law all these years if it's unlawful? So it wouldn't be in the law books if it was unlawful with this operation. Now, I'm not a laws and orders guy simply because it's a law and an order. There may be some that we need to abolish, absolutely. However, what President Trump and the generals are doing is working with the laws and orders that are on paper and basically trumping, all pun intended, trumping them with the laws and orders on paper. So that's why when you hear some of these podcasters out there saying, well, isn't that part of the corporation? Yes, you morons, but you got to use that against them. It's called a counter psychological operation. You take all their literature and use it against them. It's that simple. It don't complicate it. So when you can think outside the box, but once you get a foundation laid with the laws and the orders, then you can think outside the box. And don't be afraid to ask a dumb question. There's no such thing as a dumb question if you're trying to seek an answer to it. It's a dumb question if you ask a dumb question and you never seek the answer to it to apply it to your life and to answer your question. So what's taking place right now, all these liberals, they look so, I mean, I don't know another word worse than atrocious. If there is a word in the dictionary that is worse than atrocious, then they are that. And Republicans and conservatives, a lot of blue badges, especially whether they're a platform or not, but you can pay for the blue badge now. But whatever, they're looking just as atrocious, some of them, by questioning President Trump. Oh, he's flipping now. Oh, he's saying something about Tucker Carlson. Oh, and they're saying, oh, these people got him elected. No, the hell they did not. Don't even, my God have mercy. President Donald John Trump did not need these people. All right. And also, laws and orders show that he really ain't been a president. All right. Until people can grasp, though, a military occupation and a continuity government and a puppet government and the presidential emergency action documents and what's been taking place, people aren't going to understand that until they have a good dose of that terminology, what they mean, how they coincide, how they operate, how they function, how they go together. So, but in reality, so it's just like there's a liberal right now. I've been trolling him on X. These people have thousands of followers, though. And I go on there all the time. I'm trolling. Now they're questioning the election. Oh, we need to go back and have an audit of the 2024 election. I'm like, please do, you morons, even though I know this is already part of the plan. But Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency signed September the 12th. Well, President Trump deployed 2 months after the National Guard, the reserve components. And there's articles showing 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024 National Guard. And this is the new technology. You can just go to your Google and voice text in your phone and say, National Guard deployed elections 2018. Boom, pulls it up. 2020, boom, pulls it up. 2022, boom, pulls it up. Go do it for 2008. Do it for 2012. Guess what it shows? Although there's no evidence, and then it'll say no evidence of National Guard deployed, because they weren't. And so little things like that can show people, like little things. And then I sent my mother a text today. I always like to have fun before I do a post. I'll say, find what's missing. It's a buddy of mine who is busy. I get people busy. I'm busy in the music industry. And so I have to send him little excerpts. And then when I'm sitting, I get a chance to drop in on him and have conversations. So I sent him these photos. I said, find what's missing. Don't look at my Facebook because I already posted about it. But I'm like, find what's missing. And it's the Army, official Army.mil. Like if you served in the Clinton era and you wanted a letter for your retirement, you could write to their organizations, their foundations, say, I'd like a that shows I retired on such and such date. And it'll be an official presidential letter of the president of what you served under. All right. And unfortunately, mine would be Obama. But in no way to erase that. No matter how bad the person could be, you can't erase that in another kind of manner. All right. So what's missing? How come Joe Biden's name is not on this website by the official military, Army? Where's his name at? What about all the people who thought they served under quote unquote Joe from 2021 to 2025? People say, well, was a website updated? Well, how come the Department of Defense to this day doesn't have the 2022 quote unquote national security strategy by Biden on their site? I'm pretty sure that it's been 3 years since 2022. The DoD can't update their website. The last NSS on the DoD website is President Trump's from 2017. So see, it's little things like that that you shouldn't have to call it proof. It shouldn't have to be, but it is, and it stinks that a veteran. If I could ever say anything, this ain't. If some people take me the wrong way, and I don't mean this way, I could care less. When I lay down at night, I sleep like a baby, no matter where I am. I've slept in my SUV going out to Idaho this time. I love camping in my own vehicle. I'm like a gypsy. So I sleep like a baby no matter where I am. But it is quite humorous that we have people out there who have trashed me as a veteran. Trashed me. All right. Just simply keeping an oath. All right. And it don't bother me like some people think it does. I'm saying that from the standpoint, look at where we are in society and history in the world. And a lot of people claim to support the military. They'll ostracize someone like me, and I'm not the only veteran talking about this, but I'm saying they'll ostracize us and say, "Oh, it's all straight up laws and orders invoked currently," and they outline a unique, very unique outline blueprint of this operation, the 45-47. The whole thing's an operation. Now, I'm not saying it's going to go to January 20th, 2029. But you have to leave that open. And another thing you have to apply is this. If you're 40 years old, if you're 50, if you're 60 even if you're 70, 12 years of your life, you're already through all of it. And they've already partially revoked the continuity of government. So it shows its priority. It was invoked by President Trump. And even though it shows on quote unquote Biden's resume right now, as the last executive order on his quote unquote resume, doesn't matter right now. It's still showing priority that they revoked it. And if there wasn't a continuity of government, they wouldn't have let it run through 2021 to 2025, a solid 4 years, if there wasn't one. If President Trump was a quote unquote threat to democracy, which we're not a democracy, but for sake of argument right now, or dictator, and all these things are yelling, then why didn't they revoke every single thing on January the 20th, 2021? How come President Trump on January the 20th, 2025, how come he revoked over 100 executive orders of quote unquote Joes? Now you're going to have your average person out there go, well, you just said that Joe wasn't president. Now you're saying that President Trump just revoked. It's all theater. It's all theater. The dash will be accounted for later whenever we're winning so much that people are tired of winning and you're appreciative of what you went through. So when you look at from that angle, life and all of it, we're at the 10-year mark to you rolled down the escalator 10 years ago today. You're already through the worst part of it. And so where you are 12 years, if it did go to January the 20th, 2029, 12 years of your life, when you see what all has been drained, what has been fundamentally reset, not fundamentally changed, but fundamentally reset back to our Declaration of Independence, back to our origin, back to our foundation, back to what our founders put in place, fundamentally reset. When you see all that and you see those win so much, you're going to look and feel like a fool if you whine and complain the whole time when I may not know who you are, but your friends and family going to know that. They going to know if you're on board one day and off board the next, on board the next. They're going to know it. All right. So when your man that you claim to support and love is playing golf, all right, when the liberals think the world's burning down right now, he's out playing golf. So in order to have the confidence to know, he already knew from the start, he knew the middle, and he knows the end. It's a plan. And all the laws show it, all his orders show it, all the visuals show it. And you have so much information now and so much unequivocal proof that you can't question now. Just like Mike Johnson this past week said, that was asked a question. He said, I'm a wartime speaker and I have no regular schedule. Every one of you in here is probably over the age of 40, and you have seen multiple speakers of the house in your lifetime, and they most definitely have a regular schedule. That's exactly what they have. Mike Johnson, no relation, is sitting there telling you, wartime speaker, meaning none of this is real. None of what it's been real from a military standpoint, but it's not real with all the distractions, the things that are making people have hiccups. If you knew and studied all of what President Trump's put into place that I've been tracking for a long time and putting it out there, then you wouldn't have any kind of hiccups. You'd be smiling. You'd have that, you know what kind of grin on your face that I talk about all the time. All right. And you would love watching the liberals melt down because they're going to ostracize them in a good way, not in a bad way. They're being ostracized right now. They used to be against war. Now they're rooting for Ukraine. So now you're for war now. You're for prolonged war. We have psychologically what they thought of their ideologies. We flipped them already. That's old Charlie Daniels song, Uneasy Rider. Go listen to it. It says, I had them all out there stepping and fetching like their heads were on fire and their asses were catching. Like, that's what we done to the liberals. We done flipped all of what they thought was their ideologies. Now they're saying the election was stolen in 2024. Boy, they gave you hell for complaining about 2020. Now look at the hypocrisy. Replicate that. You don't want to look like them. Look like them. You got to open your ears, cut off everything else, Fox News, OAN, and Newsmax, and some of these massive big blue check forums like Alex Jones and all them. All they are, they just blow smoke up your dress. It's like your grandma. When I was growing up, my grandma used to cook a lot. And if I was at her house, she'd be standing there. And then when she got done with the blender with the little sticks, and she pulled those sticks out with the cake batter on it or the pudding or whatever it was, and say, you want to lick sticks? You want? And I'm like, oh, yeah. You know, that's why I'm addicted to sugar now. And it's hard to get off of it, right? Well, it'd be like your grandma handing you the little spoon or the little sticks from the blender and then giving you the taste of heaven, but then you never get to have a slice of the heaven. That's what all these news people do. They just throw you a crumb. They never show you the laws. They never show the orders. They never show you how they're applicable, how they're applied. It's like vocal coaches. Vocal coaches show you how to warm your voice up. They show you how to, and all this other stuff. They show you all that. They never show you how to apply it to singing because that's their catch. Most of them can't even sing. They just know how to warm their vocals up. That's why I love an old friend of mine, Ashton Shepherd. She's had a couple top 20s in country music. Same kind of boat I've been in. Real talent, real country, real writer. And, you know, the fraudulent deep state don't want people like us because that's what we are. And someone asked her one time, how do you warm your voice up? She said, with a nice shot of whiskey. That's how I warm it. I don't need vocal lessons. I'm just a natural picker.
Hey, Derek, you're kind of rubber banding. Are you in a bad spot?
So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, my internet blipped for a minute.
Okay.
So, you know, you have to apply simple principles in this fact. You know, I'm not telling people what you do. I can't make you do what I would wish you could do, but I'm always operating from a veteran standpoint, but also from a what I've been tasked to do. All right. And I've been given that opportunity with the credentials I have. I've been given that opportunity and trusted with that. And so I get frustrated for people because I see what all the other peoples are saying. I see it. And I'm like, these people, if we want to leave the deep state in the swamp, if we want to leave the past behind, we can't keep replicating it. We have to have people who know what's going on lawfully. All right. Because we're already going to have a time in the future going through all the laws that need to be abolished. And that's going to be fun in another kind of way, because there's certain things that need to be done away with, period. But we don't need to replicate what the past was. And that's what a lot of people are getting hung up on and tripped up on right now. It be doing good, and all of a sudden you'll see something, and you know, platforms, what they'll do is they'll send a question out. Oh, is World War III begun? Well, that's where you got to understand internet and applications now, apps, as we call them for short. They have codifications, they have codes, they have algorithms. And when you see a question and you comment on it, every time someone comments, it makes that post more visible. And that's what these people want. Most of them don't even care about you. They don't deeply care about you. Now, if you've never met me personally, you might not think that yet about me, but a lot of people in here have met me personally. And you can tell by the way someone acts and responds around you. My dad might be listening, but he might be. But my dad tells people all the time, he'll talk to a fence post, right? So I'm the kind that'll give you all my time and attention no matter where I am, on the road, on tour, whatever I'm doing. So that's where you see people's sincerity, and when it's really about the operation, not about all the other crap. All right. And a lot of these people are just in it to sell stuff. They're in it just to be a face, a name, and they want to be famous or popular. All right. And I can tell you right now, you don't want that. I can go ahead and tell people. It's not what people think. So where we are, you see a lot of stirring up right now from Republicans, conservatives, and patriot platforms. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about Iran. Well, if they only knew simple laws and orders, and also what President Trump did, was, because most of this has been done, but the man they claim to support, and even if they do support him, and even if they did vote for him, why are they still spreading surface level drama and propaganda when you shouldn't have a platform if you don't absolutely know a lot of years of laws and orders and events or things that apply to that? For example, all right, what's going on right now with Iran is the same thing I'm saying about Obama's executive order and declared a national emergency with Yemen. And you saw all these liberals a few weeks ago, they were, oh, you Republicans, conservatives said Trump was never going to start a foreign war. Here we are bombing Yemen. Yeah, you morons. It was your president who declared that national emergency. It was your president who signed that executive order. President Trump is going in and having to clean up what the swamp left. And see, if you understand swamp rhetoric, see what they did, they took all the laws and orders on paper because they knew the American people didn't know about it. They also knew that most of the American people said, oh, Derek Johnson, there's no way you can know laws and orders. You're not a lawyer. Entitlements, position, very thing our founders warned us against, the very things our founders were against. And here we are today. And so when you look at Yemen, Obama, when you look at what's going on with Israel, we've always been an ally of Israel. And you have a lot of Republicans looking atrocious right now, saying, "Oh, when you other people out there, when it's all shown that Israel was involved with JFK's death, you're going to look like an idiot." Okay, that's like saying that if you're an Alabama football fan, all right, or someone, if you know, I use sports a lot because it's a lot easier for people to comprehend. But all right, Alabama football, if they won the national championship every year, other teams will quit watching. Other teams will quit trying to play because it would be so repetitive. That's even why they did some of the things they did, because it was always Alabama, Ohio State, and Notre Dame and certain teams up at the top. So they couldn't beat us, so they had to do what? Insert money into sports and try to spread that around. All right, so if Alabama changes a coach out, well, that's the same. It's the same kind of retrospect. So what they're saying is, you can't support Israel because of what they did 65 years ago plus, whatever it is, 60. Do my math. So that's stupid. That's dumb. So it'd be like Alabama having a coach that was a bad coach, and funneled a bunch of money or embezzled something, and it was back in the 70s, and that's how stupid that is. That's an ignorant comment by a Republican or a conservative and or a patriot. All right, has nothing to do with the Israel period. It doesn't mean every Israeli is a bad person. I mean, that's how atrocious that sounds. So we've always been an ally. President Trump, out of nowhere, declared Jerusalem capital of Israel, which was beyond biblical. And I don't know how you get beyond biblical, but it's beyond biblical. Not only monumental and historical, every other president had talked about it, never did it. And it was in a major year of Jubilee, not just a regular Jubilee year. It was a major year of Jubilee. All right. So that happened in December the 6th, 2017. All right. So when you look at what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, all right, this is why you have to understand this is very hairline to listen to. Hairline meaning this is very keen on terminology. Eisenhower established presidential emergency action documents along with a continuity government. Those are a plan of continuity government, meaning those coincide, they go with it. Well, in 1951, Congress violated the Constitution by putting term limits on the president. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that the Congress is to set the term limits on a president. So there's that. Our founders made it an equal balance. But see, if people are doing what's right in every position, whether you're the president, the vice president, Speaker of the House, Congress, Cabinet, whatever you are, House, Senate, whatever position you're in, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing based on the letter of the law and the principle of the law, the highest law in the land, the Constitution, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then there won't be an unequal balance of power, because we, the people, are supposed to be the governed, right? We're supposed to be the ones down here saying, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. So when we have accountability, responsibility, transparency, and communication, then everybody will be on the same page. But what happened through the years, Americans quit knowing that, put all this power into the hands of bureaucrats, judges, lawyers, which became attorneys. They're not really lawyers. They're not studying the law. So they have all this little system they established. You move forward. Roosevelt, the Congress didn't like what Roosevelt was doing. Franklin, not Teddy. When he said on December the 8th, the day after Pearl Harbor, he said, if you don't do something, I will. And who do you think the military is going to listen to? You, the Congress, or me, the president, the commander in chief? So see, they didn't like that already. So then 1951, term limits. 1973, your incompetent doo-doo swamp people, they put limitations on the president in the War Powers Act of 1973, where he had to declare a national emergency to be able to use the troops, the National Guard, the whoever, it doesn't matter, the military. So see, you had your swamp creatures, Carter, all of them, Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, they've all passed down these national emergencies. They signed and declared them, but they never did anything with them. So when you have a from 1979, which is years older than me, all right, 46 years ago, this is not a national emergency anymore. It's not an emergency at all when it's been continued every 2 years, every 2 years, every 2 years, every 2 years. That's not an emergency. All right. So what these people did was they took what was prescribed in law and they just kept passing it forward, and they kept them open. What did that do? Created money for them. And you heard President Trump recently take a shot at the Bushes, very subtle shot, very low key, but caught it. He said, how come we didn't take the oil? He was talking about Iraq. He said it very clear. How come we didn't take the oil? Well, most of the liberals in the 90s thought we did take the oil. Nope. He said we. How come we, the United States, didn't take the oil? He was telling you that they took the oil, the Bushes, and all the swamp creatures, not we, the United States. So see, you got to listen to this guy. So when you look at 1979 and all the way moving forward, that's the oldest national emergency and executive order we have. Executive Order 12170 by Jimmy Carter. He's already dead, and it's older than me. All right. So what's taking place is President Trump, when they have this government, was supposed to do and what they're doing as prescribed by law is not what any of the swamp creatures ever did. They never did any of that. But so what President Trump or them are doing with the military occupation and continuity government is they put us in a defense mode. We're defending our turf. We're defending our country. It's a defense war. We're to protect our turf. When foreign and domestic was added to the oath of enlistment was under Abraham Lincoln. It didn't mean foreign nations. It didn't mean go across the ponds and fight foreign nations. It meant foreign anybody. If you were a liberal acting like an idiot, you're foreign. If you don't know the foundation of this nation, the very ideology set up by the founders, like liberals say, oh, we're a democracy. We're not a democracy. Nowhere in the Declaration of Independence is the word democracy. Nowhere in the Constitution is the word democracy. Nowhere in the Bill of Rights is the word democracy. The only time, the only place and time the word democracy appears in any of our founders' literature is at Federalist Paper number 10, which was written by James Madison, who is the father of the Constitution. And he says pure democracies are dangerous. That's how stupid liberals are. And you can't say ignorant, because ignorance, at least you can probably get to ignorance and say, hey, you look like an ignorant fool right now, and here's some literature that'll help you out if you care. They don't care. They're in reprobate mind status. That's why they should get their asses handed to them. They should have their teeth smashed down their throat for spitting in law enforcement. They should get a little butt whooping. That's what they never got it growing up, as we all know. So they should get it right now, and no one should be frowning on that. All right? No one. And so democracy, that never shows up. The only place it shows up is Federalist Paper number 10, James Madison. Pure democracies are dangerous. Article 4, Section 4, we're a republic. And these people, oh, they love to use the term Constitution. I'm like, that's the worst thing you can do. It's a framework to keep Congress in check. What we're doing is what the Declaration of Independence actually outlines, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, it is the right and is their duty to overthrow such government and set it on its new foundation. That's exactly what we're doing. So President Trump put us in a defense. He tells everybody we're in an invasion. We had an invasion. Well, the invasion happened long before, quote unquote, Joe, for the normal people out there. The invasion's been taking place. The border has never been what the border should be. So that's why when people were saying to me 2 and 3 years ago, oh, well, why would President Trump let the economy go to hell and destroy our country and let Joe do all it was already in hell. I mean, if you can acknowledge that our economy and everything about our nation was somewhere in the 85 to 95 percentile of good and or / near perfect before 2016, you're a moron. And there's no other definition for you. There's no other definition. It's always been a topsy-turvy, up and down, up and down. It's been a checks and balances by the bureaucrats, the swamp people. They create a problem they have a solution to. They would go over here and stir a group up and stir them up. And then, oh, hey, we got something for you. Oh, feed us. And then they go back over to the other group over here who had quailed down after they had created a problem with them and solved it. And then they got agitated again, while the other one they just appeased is quieted down. They run to them. And they kept doing that all these years with inflation, which they established with the Nixon shock in 71. The deep state established all this, the bureaucracy, the incompetence. President Trump told you the other day, he nominated someone. He said he would probably be a good offensive strategy guy, but he's a great defensive strategy. most of his ambassadors that he's put into place are all Army veterans. And guess what most of them are? Not all of them, but most are special operations. The ambassador role serves two missions: ambassador on the government side, chief of mission on the military side. All right. It's very key and critical role. We're going to maintain and sustain this for quite a while afterwards, but we still have to fight as if we're not, for the future sake of maintaining and sustaining. So what President Trump's doing is taking all of the deep state tactics with their literature and using it against them. So that's why when people say stuff, I'm like, well, it is the corporation, but he's using their language against them. And they can't say what? Even if they were in real time, which are not, but if they were, they can't say, you can't do that. That's unlawful. No, they're not saying that at all. They're calling him a dictator and all these. They're never saying the law is unlawful. They're never saying the orders are unlawful. The average liberal is trying to do that, but your quote unquote leaders, most of them are not trying to say anything of that nature. They're just calling him a dictator and a fascist and he's an authoritative kind of person and all those other things. That's why you got to listen to what's going on. And so President Trump uses their language against them. And he talks about, I'm the one, talking about democracy. He's using their words against them. All right. So that's why you got to know it's an operation. And so all of these things with Iran is in that 1979 executive order. That is the executive order with the national emergency that Jimmy Carter declared in 1979. Now, what Republicans, if Republicans were going to have any kind of comment right now, or conservatives, patriots, it should have been that Iran was the one we should have been watching the whole time. Iran's the one that was building the nuclear program this whole time. All that time, that executive order stayed open in national emergency. They didn't have a plan for it, and they let Iran build all these nuclear facilities and all these underground facilities, all these different uranium mines and everything. While that order just kept being continued and continued and continued. That's why President Trump, straight out the gate, hammered Obama in his trash Iranian deal from the very get-go. So that's why people also have minds where it's short attention spans. You don't forgotten what happened way back here in 2016, 2017, 2018, as if it doesn't matter. It does, because laws and orders more than clearly outlined. 45-47 is a strategic operation, the whole thing. And so Iran, if we did get involved, we have full right to. That's not starting a foreign war, because Jimmy Carter has this executive order that's been continued every 2 years. All right. Meaning they were promising Iran something all those years. And most commanders that I'm on with, all the Lieutenant Colonel Bosey and Colonel Sellers and Lieutenant Colonel Lennox that I've introduced, all these colonels and the generals know this. All right. So all those years, that's why they got fed up with it. And they had to devise a plan that was very strategic that would work. But they also devised the plans, because some people would say, well, if they always knew they were going to do this, why didn't they do it before now? Well, when it was go time, they went full charge, meaning we're going to take out trafficking, child trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, illicit drugs, opioids, big farm. When we go, we're going to get it all while we can. Because when they put a full-fledged military occupation on, you won't want to do it just to clean out one little thing. You want to clean out the whole thing. My old saying, torching the barn, killing the rats. You want to torch the SOB and let that sucker burn all the way down to the ground. You don't want to go in there and just, oh, there's one rat. Bow, gotcha. And then, all right, we're done here today. No, because what's going to happen? What if you killed the male rat, but he'd already got the little female rat pregnant? She's going to do what? Have babies, and you're going to have more what? Rats in your barn. All right? You got to think like that. So that's what President Trump's doing. And he couldn't do this as a normal president. He couldn't. There's no way possible. An outsider that's never been a politician hasn't done all this just because he's got a few strong words and he's unique. And no, hell no. There ain't no way. There's no way. He would have been assassinated. No doubt. So you got to look at the special operations of it. And that's where you should rise up in your heart, in your chest, in your chill bumps, and the fire, or whatever you get, whatever fuzzy feeling you're supposed to get, that's what you're supposed to have. Because there's This is the true way the military was supposed to operate against foreign enemies. And President Trump's told you over and over, our within. I mean, I think that's about quote unquote patriots or quote unquote President Trump supporters is he tells everything, and he has to. It's a proclamation. It's all time stamped. Everything's time stamped. And the little spearhead, tip of the spear, his hand formation, all the idiots out there calling that Illuminati. And then you got the others saying it's Space Force. No, it's not. It's Army Special Operations. All right. So, unconventional warfare. He was wearing at Fort Bragg on the side of his ball cap, the spearhead. In the very image that's on the very front of the very 2016 unconventional warfare pocket guide that I always talk about with the pyramid, it'll change your life. If you go study that pyramid, it'll change your life. Inside of it, page 11, inside of it. And that's what you're witnessing. So Iran, if we got involved, it's all right. We can. He's taking care of all these things that have been open, but you can't just go in there and say, all right, the hell with you. We don't care what you've been promised for 46 years or 40 whatever years when it started. No, we don't care. We're done. No, he's doing exactly what a president should say. Look, here's the deal. Here's what's taking place. All right. We know everything. We have everything. All right. You can make a deal and we can work that out. The earlier, the better, or there's going to be consequences. If you don't want to make a deal, then here's what's going to happen to you. All right. And so it's obvious that Iran didn't make a deal when they should have when he first took office, as he started hammering Obama and Iran. And during that time period, Iran, Israel, to the United States. Right. They've always. So it's apparent they didn't make a deal then. So what you're watching now is the annihilation of it. All right. North Korea. Oh, boy, remember, oh, Lord, Hillary and all of them. Before President Trump, when he was walking down the escalator 10 years ago today and all throughout the campaign, he's going to start his temperament, his attitude, and the way he talks, he's going to start a nuclear war and a World War III with North Korea. Did that happen? No, he was the first president to ever walk into North Korea. Bill Clinton didn't go in there. Obama didn't go in there. To see, I mean, that little thing along all the other capitulations, that one little thing alone shows you right there what's going on. And then the other thing that can prove it is if Obama and Bill and Hillary and George W., who all joined their wagon, which we know he's part of it, but if they were free to roam, if they have free roam of the earth right now, if they're not constrained, if they're not detained, if they're not anything like that, why aren't they in these Democratic infested cities making rally speeches and rally up the Democrats saying, we're going to take this nation, blah, 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 blah. Where are they? And for the few people out there say, oh, well, they post on their social. Come on, people. Come on now.
No.
if they have free roam, could go anywhere they wanted to go, even with Secret Service, doesn't matter. If they had free roam, where are they? They're not out there. They're not rallying. They're not rallying their people. So it shows you. And so for the people who want justice, chill the you-know-what out. Chill out. We're doing this the right way. We're cleaning everything to the T out. And we got to get it right. And it's going to be right. All right. So you got to chill out. Military doesn't operate on your time. So you can't be saying, so example, you can't be saying, oh, yeah, go President Trump, love President Trump. Military's the only way, military. And then turn around and whine and complain because when's this going to be over? When is this going to be done? Chill out. All right. Enjoy this because my God, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. We ain't going to be doing this again no time in the future. This special operation. And the Lord's going to show that. So in history, enjoy the liberals crying. Enjoy all these evil people who are losing right now. It's okay to be joyous over that. It's all right to be okay with that because they're in a reprobate mind. If they're in a reprobate mind and they can't be saved, enjoy that moment. The Bible even tells you, if you're a Bible believer, if you're a God believer, Christ believer, the Bible tells you in the death scripture that everybody reads at funerals, the 23rd Psalms. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow, I will fear no evil. And then it says, I will prepare a table in front of your enemies. I mean, can you imagine? I can. I got hated that first year or two by the most ignorant, dumb people you could ever believe, but they were vicious and they were trying to create all these stories. I can imagine just putting that shit-eating grin on my face and just walking right down the middle of them, and they're gnashing and yelling and they're mad and they're jealous. And I can just imagine walking right down the middle of them, kind of like you do. You see President Trump walking out at UFC fights and all that, like walking down the middle of them and just grinning at them, just smiling at them, going, man, you could have been on the right side of humanity if you just used those little 2 brain cells fighting for 3 chambers in your brain. But you didn't. You didn't. You didn't isolate your other little chamber and say, all right, here you go, right here. Here they are. It's all there. So no one should be fearing anything. And also, Israel got the operations. That applications in 2019. That's where you've seen me post on my pages about the $572 million spent. That was reported in 2018 and 2019. President Trump declared, and that, he did not a national emergency, but he did an executive order for opioids crisis. One of them is Executive Order 13784. And there's another executive order of another back in that era. 2017 now. 2017. So President Trump told you from the get-go, follow the money. You can't listen, you can't grab anything you don't follow. You got to see how they're operating, where the money's going, who's operating it, how they operate with it. So see, a lot of people don't forget about President Trump's quote, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. Well, he told you another thing. All the liberals laughed about it. He said, we are not paying for it anymore. Talking about even the border wall. And 28,000 Mexican troops helped build the border wall. That was also money. It didn't just necessarily mean that, oh, you're going to reach in your pocket and pull out money and pay us. Their troops had to build that border wall along with some of our help, mainly a lot of theirs. All right. So if we know anything about Spanish people, they build like nobody's business and they do it quickly. All right. And they're perfect with it. All right. So there's that. So when you think of the money, he said, what? We're not paying for it anymore. So now fast forward. You go to this opioids. Reporting, most people probably known about.
Derek, you're rubber banding. You're rubber banding.
Most of you wouldn't know about our military sites. You wouldn't. But that's okay. But in 2018, it's timestamped. June 24, 2018, specifically, military.com. The Army spending $572 million. 26 of 31 combat brigades are training for underground and dense urban areas. I mean, you can't get any more specific than that. President Trump is the first president to implement a full strategic plan for subterranean warfare. He's the first in special operations. He's the first. A full strategic plan. Not the first tunnel rats we've ever had. No, but a first strategic plan. And you have this article hitting $572 million. Then in August 2019, Washington Examiner and a few others, $572 million. Also in August 2019, you have a case in Oklahoma, a case, Johnson & Johnson, opioids case. They lost the case and they were forced to pay $572 million. Now, what's the odds of that? Think of that kind of money. All right. It's not play money for average people. So what are the odds that all these Army articles talking about we're going to fight subterranean warfare, which is where all your trafficking operates and exists? Think about that. Opioids, Johnson & Johnson, Big Pharma. President Trump hammered Big Pharma. He's the one who hammered Big Pharma. All right. And Johnson & Johnson, no relation whatsoever. All right. They're in there losing the court case with opioids, and they're forced to pay the same amount of money that's in our Army publications that's saying in 2019 we're going to be in Israel fighting underground wars. Gaza, Egypt, cross-border operations. All right. Also in 2019, the Defense Intelligence Agency puts out a publication. It's talking about Iran, talking about all the deep underground, your underground facilities. It's talking about shadow government. All right. In an Iranian publication. All right. It's our publication about Iran. It also talks about North Korea's 8,000 plus tunnel systems. You remember being called, a lot of patriots in here, you remember being called a conspiracy theorist just for knowing about underground facilities. And that's just everyday language for military. We've always known about the tunnels. President Trump's the first to implement a strategic plan to combat that, to go in there. We got the men, we got the equipment, we have the technology. All right, we have that. But we had never full-fledged trained specifically for that. And then when the Israel quote unquote war kicked off October 7th, 2023, right? That's what they established a new date in history for that, where President Trump would get the credit for it. All right. Well, after that, in the first week, Romania, Bulgaria, Nigeria, Tunisia, Algeria, Oman, you had New Zealand, Thailand, Japan, Argentina, Colombia, United States, Canada, Poland, Sweden, Norway, Belgium, Germany, France. I mean, just about everybody. Ukraine, Russia, all military aircraft within Israel in 1 week's time. October the 7th to October the 14th, timestamped on my pages. All those aircraft and the photos of those aircraft in Israel in 1 week's time. All right. The MFO organization running back and forth from Egypt to Gaza. There's your publication right there, your MFO. You go look them up, mfo.org. Mike, Foxtrot, what did I say? Oh, so Oscar.org, mfo.org. Go check them out. Running back and forth. And one was just up night before last, running back and forth from Egypt to Gaza. And it's in our Army publications in 2019 that this is going to be taking place. And then after that first week, in the month of November 2023, all your New York Times, all these articles were showing you tunnels. They were even putting up graphics. They even, one of them, New York Times, or one of those put up a virtual tour that you can do in a tunnel. All right. And it told you that the war is now going through the tunnels, underground facilities, subterranean warfare, unconventional warfare. And President Trump's spearheading daily in every meeting, major meeting, and every event. He's holding a spearhead. And because he couldn't do it on Inauguration Day, it would have really looked awkward with what he had to do at the podium. Eric Trump's over there holding up the spearhead. Come on, people. Come on. Do the military. Sorry, Marine Corps. I'm sorry, you Marines. Sorry, Navy. Sorry, Air Force. Sorry, you newbies, Space Force. But it's the Army. It's the Army Special Operations. I mean, come on. Give us some love out there. Give the military some love. This is all an operation. And so he ain't starting anything. He's having to finish all this bull crap that's been established by these bureaucrats for years. And he's doing it the right way, because we're not supposed to look like this in the future. It ain't supposed to be arguing back and forth, argumentative, and all this hatred and mockery. It wasn't, even with the Democrat and the liberal, it wasn't supposed to look like that. And really, it's the liberals, but Democrat and Republicans are not supposed to look like they have looked whatsoever. That's not what federal government's supposed to look like. So that's what they had to do, was they had to cut it back down. It got so big and so out of hand, but they had to do it lawfully. And they're doing it by the prescription of law, not what the bureaucrats have made people to think all these years. So then when you look at the streets right now, and then we'll do like Q&A or whatnot. But when you look at the streets right now, what's going on is all lawful. Again, all these laws have been in paper for years. The orders that President Trump has given under those laws are all lawful. All right, they're all lawful because they support the Constitution. Invasion and rebellion of public safety. That's your Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. That is suspension clause. That is exactly the clause in the Constitution. The suspension clause that allows the legislative branch to suspend the Constitution, not the president. Article 1 is legislative. All right. It's them. And so what's cool about it was the Democratic House who introduced 50 in Title 50, Chapter 33. President Trump's Democratic House now introduced the key foundational war order 1550, Title 50, Chapter 33 on December the 20th, 2019. The Democratic House introduced that. All right. Of course, the Senate passed it because they were Republican. All right. And it passed. That is the foundational order in your Title 50, Chapter 33, which is your war powers. Is a war order, no matter what anybody else says. Order. It's in the War Powers Act of 1973. President Trump used all their language against them. And it says in there, every 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter, the president is to report to the defense committees the use of regular and irregular military. Well, irregular brings in your secret military. That brings in your guerrilla warfare. That brings in your unconventional warfare. That brings in your the clandestine and your covert operations, which is in a continuity of government, a military occupation. All right. You have to have a reason to use those. All right. And if you go look in the 2016 Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide, right before the pyramid, it says that whether or not the United States government supports the unconventional warfare, the military can operate. But it has to be done with what? A presidential order or executive order. Well, you have that. All right, you have that very clear, but you got to keep in mind, President Trump and them are doing everything lawfully, and they have to reset it lawfully. So they're doing what? It's joint. It's showing Congress, Democratic House, introduced Section 1550, Republican Senate passed it. There's your war order. Then President Trump comes in here and he puts in all the action orders, your executive action orders, executive orders, when he federalized 1 million reserve components that hasn't been revoked. All right. When he directed Secretary of Defense equal authority to federalize selective reserves. Remember, reserves only serve a federal mission. They're not state. They're not dual. They're federal only. They're presidential orders only. All right. Then he started the war on drugs. The Southern Command, April the 1st, 2020. No fool's joke. They started a war on illicit drugs, 22 joint partners. All right. That's still ongoing. There's articles about that daily. All right. Then you had your NAFTA was ended. The USMCA, there's right there. It tells you right there. Anything Canada does in the news, if it looks negative, it's null and void. It's a distraction piece. The United States, Canadian, Mexican agreement was made on July the 1st. In that same prescription. And then you have your Abraham Accords. Then you have, which peace in the Middle East, United Arab Emirates and Israel. All right, right there. And a few other countries came on board over in the Middle East. Then you had your Executive Order 13961. That's the one that invoked the continuity government. And President Trump gave it a name, Federal Mission Resilience Strategy, but in that order, it talks about the continuity government, continuity operations. 3 days later, you had your Executive Order 13963. That was the order of succession within the Department of Defense. Every president has had one except for quote unquote Joe. And you got to listen carefully. That is the last and most recent order of succession from December the 10th, 2020. That's the most recent order of succession within the Department of Defense. So see, it shows you right there. And then the 3 weeks later, January the 1st, the publication under FEMA's Federal Continuity Directive 1 and 2, which were reissued January the 17th and June 13th, 2017. Your continuity government, big umbrella plans. They're the guidebooks, the handbooks, whatever you want to call them. All right. You have a publication coming out under those January the 1st, 2021, where it specifically says the reconstitution of the executive branch. Reconstitution means to set something back to its original state. So they're telling you that the executive branch has not been in its original state. It was hijacked. All right. If you want to look at it in layman's terms, January the 6th, 2 objections took place in the state of Arizona count. The Congress
Now it was all planned. It was all visual plan because you're already in your continuity of government. It's already all that's already invoked. All right. Executive Order 13963 and 1 proves that. Both of those, the order of succession, you're seeing the military moving into DC. All the troops started moving in on the 6th, the 7th, the 11th, the 13th, the 17th. It wasn't for no quote unquote inauguration. All right. So you saw all that movement, but you witnessed Congress. Congress knew what was going on. All right. And all the ones, the deep state knew they were already trapped. They'd already known that. All right. And so you saw them break. The first time in U.S. history, there were 2 objections. First time in U.S. history. And then Title III, Section 15. They didn't do what it says. You're supposed to dispose of the objections before you move forward with the vote count. You didn't see that. A quote unquote insurrection immediately happened after the objections. All right. And then they rushed back in. They went from California to Wyoming and certified quote unquote Joe. You heard Nancy Pelosi. Oh, it was so, I'm so down. Oh my God. All this other stuff. Right. No, it don't matter how distraught anybody could have been if that would have been a real situation. It was no excuse to go from California to Wyoming, but that was all planned. Also, Nancy Pelosi has no control over the National Guard. All that talk and rhetoric out there is to try to educate people. She has no control over the National Guard. It don't matter what she said. She has, especially the DC National Guard. They answer straight to the commander in chief. All right. So it's that simple. Then you have January the 20th, your 3 cannons. For first time in U.S. history, 2 different sets of cannons were shown. All right. 3 for Biden, 4 for President Trump. By definition, 4 cannons, 21 rounds fired is a 21 gun salute. 3 cannons at Arlington. No matter what time of the day, whenever you go to Arlington, it don't matter if it's December the 1st, January the 1st, April the 1st, it don't matter. 3 cannons at Arlington is a funeral. However you want to split that hair on the day, it's a funeral. So they showed you all those things, and that's when the inauguration, where they had the quote unquote inauguration. He raised his right hand. He broke the 20th Amendment straight out the gate. 11:47 a.m. Every other president swears in at 12:01 to 12:05 p.m. All right. And then Army Regulation 600-25, 2-3 cannon salutes. There's to be a commissioned officer at every cannon salute, no matter what kind of cannon salute it is. There's to be a commissioned officer present. President Trump had a commissioned officer. Where was quote unquote Joe's? At the fake cannon salute anyway, because it wasn't a salute. It was a funeral salute. All right. So all those things, the National Guard didn't salute the motorcade for quote unquote Joe and all those things. So that was all your visuals. All right. And then where we are today, so you watch 2017 to 2021, the legislative branch be reset. 2021 to 2025 was the executive branch being reset. And now all you hear is judge this and judge that and judge this and judge that and judge this and judge it. How come not one single judge tried to block a tariff from 2021 to 2025? Not one single judge tried to block a tariff. And quote unquote Joe, for the people that thought he was real, he didn't even remove a tariff from 2021 to 2025. So all of a sudden the judges are blocking, trying to block, and oh, this is a threat. No, this is unconstitutional. No, this is that. Well, if they were unconstitutional now, why weren't they unconstitutional in 2021 to 2025? So it's real simple. All that's part of the distraction pieces, but also educational tools to teach people. So now when you see the National Guard, President Trump just put in a new order just a couple of days ago. That was a presidential call-up. That's a National Guard presidential call-up. Title 10, Section 12406. All right. That's presidential. Then the one way back over here in March 2020 was a presidential, but it was a federalization of the reserve components. That's Title 10, Section 12302. All right. So completely different orders, completely different kind of troop, completely different kind of mission. All right. So when you hear liberals out there saying that's unconstitutional and that we got our troops out in our streets, joint publication. You've heard me talk about this. Joint publication. See, liberals can't get past the word joint because they're too busy. They're smoking too many that they can't even get out of that. All right. Joint publication 3-57. You go to page 46 in there and it says generally. See, this is why ladies listen better. Men, males, Some of y'all do. If you're in here, you're listening because you're here for the right reasons. But this is why outside, externally, males struggle with this because they don't listen to keywords. All right. Most of them miss their wives' birthdays and they don't buy them cards like they should. And they wonder why they sleep on the couch more often. And they also wonder why they're lonely a lot more often because they don't do the things they're supposed to be doing. All right. Generally, it says generally, the Title 10 regular forces should not deploy to our streets. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's what they're saying. Generally, though, that's not paraphrased. Generally, Title 10 forces do not operate with civil. And it says another key word in there, unless. There's another word you underline 3 times and circle and put in red. Unless the Constitution or Congress deems so. Well, guess who the Congress was on December the 20th, 2019? Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. Title 50 is Congress's role. And guess who did that? A Democratic House introduced it and a Republican Senate passed it. So it was bipartisan. War order. So there's your joint order by Congress over here in your joint publication 3-57. Guess what that whole publication by the military is titled? Civil dash, that dash also matters, civil dash military operations. So we most certainly can hit the streets. Absolutely. Regular and irregular forces, and also National Guard and reserve components, whatever we want on the streets, we can, as long as there's a lawful order there, and it's there. So that's why you have to know your presidential emergency action documents and what they do, what the continuity of government does. When you have those, that's telling you right there, like they told you March 23rd, 2020, 4 days before President Trump put the first big order in, they were telling people in the mainstream media, and you heard it, if you remember it, especially those of you who've been tracking real heavily, boy, they were saying, oh, what is the President Trump's trying to terminate the Constitution. He wants to get rid of the Constitution, terminate it. Wrong terminology, you morons. It's called a suspension clause, and it's actually in the very place of this little thing called the Constitution that you libtards claim that you support, and you don't even know the language in it. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 is called the suspension clause. It says an invasion or rebellion of public safety. Well, the legislative branch does that. But also, when you go over to Article 2 of the Constitution, you'll see what the president has also power to do. He also has the authority and power to call the border and say, shut it down. Shut it down. You don't need a bill. All a bill does is fund something. And that's why we have to have the basic core principles added back to people out there, just the 3 branches of government alone, how they function, the terminology of what a bill does. And when it becomes an act, like a bill, all a bill does is fund something. It's just the funding of something that needs built, or we need funding for this, we need funding for infrastructure, for bridges, etc. That's all a bill does. But when it comes to your safety and your children's safety, the president has full authority to protect you, me, us, our people, we the people. He has full authority to do so. All right, and our founders established that. And so what everybody's watching are the presidential emergency action documents, which expand the power of the president in a pre-drafted, pre-planned. Those are all pre-drafted. So I'm going to close where we do questions, but you have 4 ways the military pairs with federal. 4. It's not complicated. 4. National emergencies, executive orders, proclamations, and treaties. Guess what presidential emergency action documents consist of? Executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. And they're all pre-drafted and pre-planned. A national emergency requires a pen, paper, and president to continue. A national emergency automatically terminates 2 years after its declaration if it's not continued. Then you have executive orders. They don't require any legislation. That is an executive order. It's a presidential order. Now, Congress can deem it unconstitutional. They can try to. So why did quote-unquote Joe continue 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies for 4 years in a row that are all deporting the migrants? It's enforcing DOGE. It's taking back the Panama Canal. It's combating all forms of drugs, opioids, etc. It's combating all forms of trafficking. And it's also terminating and eliminating all these other executive orders that's been open from previous presidents. That's what so it'd be like this. It'd be like here. It's what liberals sound like to me. This when I hear them out there, this is what I hear them saying. I'm like, so what's your? They'd be like saying, all right, if you want to be Joe Biden, whispering Joe, stammering Joe, and so President Trump. So I didn't terminate your war order that your Democratic House introduced and that your Republican Senate passed on December the 20th, 2019, the same day you established the Space Force. I didn't eliminate that order. I didn't deem that unconstitutional. We didn't do that. And also all the executive orders in between that, where you federalized the National Guard, the active duty, and then also you federalized the reserve components, all those, I left those open as well. All right, so there's that. And then all these executive orders here, the one with the Panama Canal, and you talking about China being a part of that, and Hong Kong, and in your executive order with your national emergency with Hong Kong, and all the others that are deporting the migrants, taking the Panama Canal back, enforcing those, and taking out all these traffickers that my son's had his hands in a lot, and even me too. I left all those open. All right, so everything's open. All your war orders are open, and all you did to me was give me civil affairs power, which is what a puppet government is, and that's exactly what we did. I know you did with me. You put me in a puppet government, just like Japan did in the 40s with the Philippines, and I didn't have any power on anything else, and we kept it all open for you. And here you go. Here's a big red bow, but guess what? Here's what we're going to do. So starting January the 21st, we're going heavy, full-fledged. We're going to call you a dictator. We're going to call you a threat to democracy. We're going to call you all kinds of things, fascist and communist and authoritative. We're going to call you all these names. But I know you can take it, though. I mean, that's how simple this is. I mean, why? So, like, and I have to bring this up just because it's fun, because most of you have been with me this whole time, a lot of you. But 2 years ago, we had an idiot that was in the military trying to stir up some stuff, and he got taken care of. All right, but had to bring it up. This idiot was trailing me on the internet out there, telling people that I'm active duty Space Force and blah, blah, blah. This is a lie, and this is this is not true, and blah, 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 trying to use the status. All right. Well, he told some people, he's telling people out there that executive orders, presidents, that's what they do. They just continue executive orders. Look how dumb he looks. Look, especially now. But look at all the people who didn't even know the language then, who went off and followed this active duty guy. All right, using active duty over a veteran. All right, has nothing to do with anything, really. It's just if you know laws and orders, if you know how the three branches operate, if you know the literature, the terminology, and how it all functions and operates, all right, that's all that matters. All right, so I could be one of those out there who ran for office who kept getting beat by money. I mean, I haven't, but just theoretically say that. I mean, just because I'm not in a position doesn't mean that you can't know the laws and orders, as do a lot of you, right? So look at that idiot. See what happens when you speak too soon, or you just want popularity, or you want something like that. You want to be famous or whatever it is that, seeking out there. And this person was misleading a bunch of people, trying to mislead more. And look at that. So you think about that. Executive orders. Is that what presidents just do? They just continue? Because I'm pretty sure the liberals wouldn't want you running around out there representing their lips right now if they actually knew how executive orders work, if they knew how national emergencies work. They wouldn't want you as their spokesperson because you just roasted all of their quote-unquote ideologies and what they think is an ideology. So see, no, you wouldn't want a president just to continue something. All right. Now, the deep state swamp did it. But that also, President Trump, even though this whole operation wasn't done to expose it in that kind of manner, but it does it naturally because they're taking out the swamp, and they're taking out all this bureaucracy, they're taking out all this evil. But it also shows you at the same time of their bureaucracy when they continue these executive orders. They just continued them and they had no plan. They had no drive or initiative to end those because they were making money in a kickback somewhere on the backside. So no, you don't want a president just to continue an executive order. And now all of those continuations by quote unquote Joe that are very key executive orders that are eliminate fraud and waste and those that are taking back the Panama Canal that China had gotten control of and Hong Kong had gotten control of. I mean, when you look at those executive orders and the deporting of the migrants, the very thing they're calling President Trump, oh, no king, no king, the very thing, the very executive orders, that's what, quote unquote, Joe continued. All right. But it's an operation. And it allowed to set up this civil affairs type deal like the puppet governments do, and allowed to set up all this and to clean it out and distract people and not get people in the streets like heavily. What the liberals are doing, that's easy to quell, that's easy to take care of, because you, the working class and the real working class Americans, aren't out doing that. And even some working class Democrats ain't even doing that. All right. They may still not like President Trump, but most people aren't out acting like idiots out there. But some of these, I was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama 2 days ago, and out on the Capitol lawn, out there on the lawn, it's not the Capitol, but it's the courthouse lawn. That's what I was trying to say. Our Capitol's in Montgomery, but on the courthouse lawn, you got all these liberals out there. And a liberal, there's one thing about them. They will get off their lazy bums and they will go, no matter how atrocious they look, no matter how dumb they are, and all their rhetoric and their quote unquote ideologies completely polar opposite and nowhere near remotely close to the foundation of this nation. They weren't watching games. They weren't playing rounds of golf. They weren't down at the bar like a lot of Republicans and conservatives and quote unquote patriots are. All right. Now, I know that we're in good hands and it's not all state. All right. But we're in good hands and we're going to be fine. And this is taken care of. And all these people out there, God wins. Well, I have to look at it this way. I don't want to stand in front of God one day. I'm going to be punished already. Everybody in here is going to be punished somehow, some way, if it looks like that. But I'm going to be punished for something. But he ain't ever going to say, you didn't fight hard enough. You didn't fight like you could have. And you didn't fight for my kingdom like you should have. So I look at it like, okay, if there is a kingdom of God, if there is a heaven, like where we die, this special place, or whatever it is, whatever people believe, I try to hit every angle possible out here without stepping on toes, which I don't really care, but in another way, just to be fun. But if there is this kingdom somewhere in this paradise somewhere like that, and it looks like that, then I have to look at it like, why would God want me in his paradise, in his special chamber, if I didn't fight for it? So see, you can't sit on your thumbs. And even though you know that President Trump is in full control and the military is in full control and everything, what we got to fight for right now is the education of all these young people who are partying. They think college is a place you go to drink, get drunk, and in a bar and have a good time. All right. And they also think that college educates them. All right. And I can speak highly and clearly for that. I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Alabama. All right. I have my master's degree from Colorado State University. If I can talk against it, all right, then everybody should understand that principle. I'm not saying they're all bad, but what we got to do is make sure that, hey, we got to be getting to these professors. And we could go ahead and get to them now, and all these teachers saying, hey, you know what's coming? If you don't start teaching what you should be teaching, you're out of here, and the funding's not going to be there. All right. So you should want to be on the good side of humanity. So that's where the fight is, because what we're looking at is all these young generations, 18 years old right now to 30. They have their heads so far up their rear ends. This is my saying. They have their heads so far up their rear ends, they can give themselves a tonsillectomy. All right. They have their phones in their face all the time. They're always on TikTok. And all these Instagram, they're posting a million selfies a the image change. Look at that's what President Trump says about the ramifications. That's the ramifications we got to deal with. So look at that. So a fight ain't over just because it's being cleaned out. If we want to be as relaxed as possible in the future, then we got to do the work right now to educate our future, which are those people behind us, those generations behind all of us, to say when we get in our 60s, 70s, 80s, depending on how old you are, if you're like me in your 40s, then if you in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, you want to kick back even more so, then we need to be educating all them right now as much as possible, saying you're the future, and here's what's taking place, and here's what you need to be doing. All right. And if you don't get on board, you're going to have me up your rear end all the time, always blowing up your phone and always blowing up your emails saying, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? If they end up in one of those positions of a congressional or presidential, any kind of level, or even military, you know. So if you don't want that, then you probably should listen to us. All right. Because that's what's going on. We don't want to end up where we just came out of. And it could easily be done with the population we have. See, so that's why the educational tools have to be there. Now, it's going to help out when President Trump starts removing funding from schools and schoolhouses. That will help out tremendously. But that's where we all are right now. Everything's been done lawfully. But that's why I tell people straight out the gate, I get more frustrated for patriots and just even average people because I see so many platforms pushing surface level drama and propaganda when there's already a clear blueprint there. But see, a lot of them don't want to acknowledge it because they have to do what? Acknowledge intellectual property. And President Trump just signed that executive order into place a couple months ago. So they'll have to acknowledge people who already knew. And so let me tell you one real quick thing that's kind of funny. So I was going to show this week with his glory.
Hold on, wait, Derek, you're rubber banding again.
I didn't even move. I mean, so I was on the. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So I was on the show this week, and I'm trying to get this on record too. You know, I get tired of people. And I don't think they did this on purpose. I know they didn't, but I'm saying other people have tried this before. You know, and I get a reputation of being like this, like honey badger or this, like, you know, bulldog in a bad way. That's just always wanting to put someone in their place in the wrong kind of way, and I'm not. I'm saying as a retired veteran who loves my other brothers and sisters in arms, and we have a major group of military who knows exactly what's going on more than the ones that don't. All right. But it looks that way sometimes. So I was on this show, and it's called a Constitutional Roundtable. And there was a attorney and veteran, same person. There was another fella there, IRS whistleblower. All right. And so it was posed all these questions about, if you know something happens at the parade, how can President Trump use the military constitutionally? I'm like, well, it doesn't have to. They're already in military occupation. It's already been done. That law, that order's still in place. So there won't have to be a command for anything to be done except for the action, meaning like, okay, if you spit in my face, you're done. Or if you disrupt this parade, you're lassoed, you're done. The order's already in place. So that is your Constitution. That is your joint publication 3-57. That is your 1550. That's all those. And so this person goes into this spiel about and took a shot at me straight out the gate. Well, I think we need to stay on the topic, unlike Derek or something like that. So I can't remember the exact shot, but, you know, and all he did is talk for like 13 minutes on a generic concept. Don't show how it's applicable. All right. So I said, I don't want to be on the show anymore. This is misleading. I almost X'd off. I can't stand that because as veterans who do know, all I'm doing is honoring all the men and women who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, but also those in memorial graves everywhere. All right. Because when there is absolute unequivocal proof, it's not my problem that other people haven't read, studied, and applied. Right. So I look like a little bulldog. But what's funny about it, I brought that up for one reason. Is see, if that person really cared about laws and orders, they'd have posted that on their page. We got that link on the same day. That link is not on their page. Got 120-something thousand followers. That link ain't even nowhere on their page because they know they got constitutionally roasted, and they're a JD, all right, and a veteran. All right. So look at where we are today. We have all these ramifications of people with titles and entitlements. All right. And it should be the very ones, they should be the ones leading the way. Absolutely. But at the same time, the flip is all of you patriots out there that don't have a title, don't have entitlement, don't have a position, you should smile even more so for the fact that you don't have those. And that's the very things our founders would be proud of, is that all of us, if you want to call us rebels, if you want to call whatever you want to call it, right? Everyone without the titles and positions have taken back this nation with the help of the ones, obviously President Trump and the generals and all those. See, they gave everybody the umbrella. They set up the parameter. And all of you who have done exactly what you're supposed to be doing, your call to action in your communities, your towns, even your family and friends, but your communities, your towns, your town halls, your city councils, with what President Trump is working with the blue. I met a guy in Idaho just a couple weeks ago. He brought all my documents. He prints everything out. He said, I take your documents. I print them out. I distribute them to every veteran I know. I distribute them to veteran clubs when I travel, etc. That right there is a patriot, right? He's showing exactly what President Trump's working with, and then also the documents. And then I have people order. I had an order come in of 17 books, which is cool, number 17, and then 10 and 10 and 10. People are distributing these books. And we're educating people. And I've had that cost buy a book, but it costs money to get them printed, right? And then they're in a chronological order, so people don't have to. They should. I tell people, open that bad boy up and pull up your computer and go at it. I put the links as you go. You don't have to look in the back of the book for the references. So it's educating people, right? And so if you're a patriot, and you know you are, most of you in here are, and people who are listening later, you know you are. All right, you know it in your heart if you are or not. But you should smile even more so when you're not a position and you're not an entitlement or some kind of title, because that's exactly who's going to maintain and sustain this. And then we're ridding all the others, and we're going to hold them accountable. And that's what we got to do the right way, according. All right. So justice is coming, but what they're going to do is win so much that when everybody's at a place, probably the 85 percentile, maybe 90, but when we get to a real good place, then they'll start showing some justice, because then people appreciate what we went through. And the only reason you have to do that this way is because so many people were lost and didn't know what was going on, and then weren't educated on the right terminology, but also for future's sake, saying, okay, this is what's going to happen if you do this right here. If you burn the flag, you get a year. If you do this, you get that. If you do, so you got to give it time. It's all been planned, and we're getting there. And since we're in a partial cog right now, by law, it shows you we're on the home stretch. You know, the Q post. I don't talk a lot about Q because there's a way to show people with laws and orders. Those are never going away. Q will go away. All right. But not the Q clearance of the military, but this Q alerts will go away. But as you know, Israel was being saved for last. All right. And Iran and all the big boys. Those are called the big boys because it's a lot. It would in a real time, if Obama or Bush or any of them in the past would have gotten us involved in that, there would have been a lot worse than anybody can imagine because of the nuclear facilities, etc. And depending on how they would have retaliated, it could have been ugly, very ugly. All right. And that's going to be told in history. So you got to wait a little bit. You're seeing the end of it. You're seeing the tail of it. And you should be excited. You should be going, heck yeah, baby, because the dash will be accounted for in history. We're not going through all this not to account for it. We're not going through all this not to see justice. We're not going through all that. Because if we didn't have justice, if we didn't have a new precedent on good versus evil, right versus wrong, and punishments, then we're right back in the same boat that we've always been. Because you and I, the Patriots, we don't need President Trump exonerated. I don't need him exonerated. I don't care about his past. God will deal with him if he has any kind of past, just like God's going to deal with all of us. All right. If that's how it works when we die, then that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't need him exonerated. Patriots don't need him exonerated. Who needs him exonerated? All these liberals out there hate him, and they're calling for his execution. They're calling for his assassination. That's why Republicans, conservatives, patriots, you don't need to be doing the same thing. Death shouldn't be looked at like that. Yes, there should be punishment, and there's consequences to punishment. But straight out the gate, just yelling executions and hangings, you need to change that terminology. We say it's a atrocity what's happened to the world, and yes, there needs to be punishment, absolutely, but there has to be a precedent to it, and there also has to be a set standard to it, and a protocol, meaning a set of procedures. All right, and even in our law of war manual, it tells how you handle prisoners of war. You handle them with dignity. That don't mean they're not going to get punished. It don't mean they're not going to accept their fate. All right, but you treat them with dignity, because it should be an atrocity that they were raised something that never had them in the first place. All right, an atrocity to humankind that there's people who have been raised to think that Americans and America wants to take their life away, and they've been raised from a baby up thinking that. So that is what we got to get control of. It's the training process. And the Bible tells you what? Train up a child in the way that he should go, and he won't depart. So the training has a lot to do with it. That's why you see these liberals out there acting like idiots, because they weren't disciplined. They weren't trained the right way. Some of them were, and they rebelled, but some of them never even had a great household and a set of parents who loved them, maybe not even a parent at all, whatever it could be. So look at the atrocities of where we are. And it's like, I agree with Charlie Kirk, what he said the other day on something. We got to get fathers back in the households. We got to have family structures back the way, if it, at all possible. Yes, there's some tragedies and people do die at young ages. Yes. But he's talking about people like these 17, 18 million single mothers out there. I mean, and all these attitudes, I don't need a man. Well, your paycheck shows you do. All right, because you ain't doing nothing about it. So see all these attitudes we've got out there, and all these ideologies, and all these things that got put out there. And we get back to the basic principles of humanity and basic principles of God and how God designed it. All right, and quit trying to play God and quit trying to play scientists and all these other things that's been infiltrated. When we get back to that basic core, then you're going to see massive changes. And God ain't going to stand for this. The God of the Bible I'm reading and the Bible I've been reading from, God ain't going to stand for this stuff, what he's been watching. So God has risen up people. He's given us that authority and that power to rule the earth the right kind of way. And that's what's taking place. So that's why you should be confident, stand tall, stand firm, don't waver. And if you knew what President Trump's working with, you would never do that. All right. I know there's not much time left, but or can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Okay, all right. So you wanted to take a couple questions, Derek?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can. I mean, I should have cut off before now, but I get the
Oh,
rolling.
you're good. No, you're good. So I saw a couple hands. Jeff Springer, I think you came up here and had your hand up for a little bit. If you're still in here, raise your hand. I will I will unmute your mic and you can ask Derek a question. Derek, I have a question for you here real quick. So what's your opinion? You know, you talk about the schools and everything. When do you think this is all going to flip over to them teaching them the right history? And because I know many friends of mine that have kids and whatever, and they are not teaching them that, you know, history and any of that. So when do you think that's all going to flip for the kids in the schools?
Well, there are a little bit of things with the hard stuff. That it's not a right to be here. It's a privilege. And so that's the startup of it, especially with Harvard. You take out a big institution like that, and when it's all said and done, Harvard will either be a capitulation. I don't know what Harvard took. This would have taken place a long time ago, obviously with the plan and the pre-plans. But they'll either be a capitulation or you'll see them dissolve, right? Because how are they going to function without federal money? They'd have to have billionaires, and they might sustain for a little while with people doing that. But, they're teaching people that foreign students here, it's not a right to be here. We have the rights. If you're a full-fledged American, we have the rights. It's a privilege for someone to come over here when they're not an American civilian. It's a privilege to be here. So that's already setting that standard. And so you take out a big, like the old saying, if you chop the dragon's head off, then the rest is history. So if you go after the big institution like that, because Harvard's one of the most known out there, Harvard and Yale, Princeton and places like that, but especially the Ivy Leagues, that can set a real good tone. And so little things like that. And I don't know, it's like the 1776 commission, that's what they showed, quote unquote, Joe revoke of President Trump's, which that should show people military continuity agreement, for the average person out there, they should be pissed, right? That's what it should have done to the average person who didn't know what I know and what a lot of people in here know or now know. All right, they should have been mad, pissed, and angry, going, why would you want that? Why would this? You don't want Martin Luther King Jr. taught in schools. You don't want George Washington Carver. You don't want So if you go read the 1776 Commission, it's still available to read. It's 45 pages, no coincidence, right? It's 45 pages, and it was just a brief summary of what's to come. All right, and President Trump has been mentioning that a lot lately. Not a lot, I guess I say that, but he's been bringing it back up and exerting it in there, where he said about teaching our history, and he's talking about Martin Luther King Jr., and he was talking about, I think he even mentioned George Washington Carver or one of those, but someone of history of a different color than a white man. So it will come in the future, but I think whenever people see everything to the quail and whatever they're planning on doing that brings all those liberals to their knees, whatever that is, because there has to be something that absolutely knocks these people to the dirt. And I have speculations what I think it could be, because of President Trump and his little text that he'll do where he'll say emergency alert, but it's just obviously a regular text message from his system for people who subscribe to it. But using that terminology seems like that's hanging in there. But to me, I think they use it in a good way, not a doomsday. So I was saying this to someone the other day. I said, imagine if you were in a bar. Just imagine you're out on Friday night or Saturday night. You're in a bar. You don't know what kind of people are around you. You probably know there's some liberals in there. You probably know there's some Republicans in there. There might be some on the line or not, or what they call, no, non-political or whatever people, right? And just imagine if they hit an EAS, presidential, never been done before. There's never been a presidential emergency alert, all right, or the old school EBS, but the EAS is what it's called now. All right. So there's never been one. So if imagine you're in a bar, right? And all of a sudden, boom, 47 U.S. Code section 606. All right. Just all of a sudden, the TVs, all the games, all the TVs, just maybe you're in a sports bar, all the TVs changed and your phones changed. And every Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, all of a sudden, everybody's phones are the same. You talking about an educational tool then? You talking about a tool? The only way you can get out of it is put your phone turn it off and walk out. And even when you went home, your TV is going to be on there if you turn it on. All right. Every channel would be that. All right. So imagine that being an educational tool. And I'll show you something really quick that I forgot to mention, just to add to. This past week, President Trump truth, or it may have been last week, but his truth about the appeals court upheld a ban on the Associated Press from being at Mar-a-Lago, the White House, and a couple other places. The Associated Press now, the AP, the big one. So it also shows that all these other smaller organizations are operating on their own as well. All right, looking like fools, writing what they want to write, begging for donations. But the Associated Press, well, if they're upholding a ban, that means the ban was already applied. Well, the media are what you call a transmission. All right. And you could go look up you can go to Google and type up these words. But when you go look that up, the terminology, that's exactly what 47 U.S. Code 606 is. It's actually titled War Powers of the President. It is given to the president the authority during a time of war to be able to control the TV, radio, and internet. And so that was a confirmation of the military government, military occupation, continuity government, with the upholding by the appeals court for President Trump to keep off the Associated Press right now. So that means there's still stuff going on they don't want the major press a part of. So all these others out there, it's showing you also not to pay attention to some of them. You can tell because using the terms like country, surrender, capitulations. That shows they've been captured and they're writing what they're supposed to write. Even if it looks slightly negative, they're captured. All right. So that's the key thing. So I think that's how you bring that. And then once we get through all that, whatever that big thing is that brings everybody to a screeching halt in another kind of manner that gets their attention, how they exonerate President Trump, it can't be him. There's nothing he can say to a liberal. Not a thing. He could have the cure to cancer. He could have the cure to everything, and they'd hate him. So it's got to be something. So once we get on the other side of whatever that is, and that ain't too far off, it can't be. All right. So when we get on the other side of that, that's when we can start having some come to Jesus meetings the right way. And we'll have a lot more people who are open ears, open eyes, and open hearts, because every whatever scared out of them, not in the wrong kind of way to scare people, but because it is an operation, whatever that is, it gets people on this over this hurdle. Then we can start going into schoolhouses and even churches, right? Even preachers have got to get back on par. We got a lot of people in the pulpit that they're preaching fear. The very polar opposite of what God talks about. So I think that's where it has to be. And who knows when that is? I don't know that personally. I'm not in the command room. But it can't be far, far off, because some people are getting fatigued. So a lot of good people are getting fatigued. And
yeah, I think it's got to happen soon, right? I mean,
you can't
hopefully
lose. You can't lose patriots either, right? You don't want to lose. You can't lose your audience.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Derek. All right. Best Press. Go ahead. Your mic is unmuted.
Hi, this is Cal over at Best Press. I just had a question. When you said that we had to give prisoners dignity, I understand that. I think that's what you said. But when it comes to people like Hillary Clinton and the evil things that she has done, does she deserve to be treated with any dignity if she's being held prisoner?
Well, your attitude sounds a little high pitched right now, but what I'm talking about is the fact that these people can be evil all they want, but I'm talking about when you take them prisoner, they're already prisoner, so they already know their fate's coming. What I'm saying is that people rooting for death is the same thing rooting for President Trump's death. All right, so it's the same thing military-industrial complex have done all these years. We should never want to go to war. Will we kick your ass if we have to? Sure. But it shouldn't be rooted for, right? That's why my great uncle who stormed the beaches of Normandy was shot 5 times, stabbed 3 times, shot 5 times and stabbed 3 times, and never talked about it. Never bragged about war, never talked about war, didn't want to talk about war. Every man who's been in a real, not these fabricated bullcrap shit war, Democrats started for money and oil and their pocketbooks, not America. They were no threat to America. And that's a sensitive subject. President Trump has to tread lightly around that, because so many men did fight thinking they were fighting for the right reasons. All right. But these bullshit wars were man-made wars. We lost so many men and women all these years for bullshit. All right. And you have to say it that way. All right. So rooting for war is stupid. All right. That's also not humane. So where we should be in society is if you've been a good person your whole life, then everybody else should be striving to be that as well. And when everybody's doing that in every capacity, sure, you're going to have some hiccups along the way. But what we allowed over the last 60 years, especially since JFK's assassination, all right, what we've allowed is all this infiltration and just let it run rampant and then let them do what they want to do. So most of these wars were uncalled for. So when you root for war and when you're cheering war on, and then you're just cheering for people to die, it's the same rhetoric on the other side. So you look the same. And so what I'm saying is there's got to be a line there, meaning like, okay, look, the punishment's coming. This whole operation took out the swamp. The people who are detained are detained. All right, they are detained. They will meet their fate. They're absolutely going to meet their fate. But when you cheer for it and you root for it, you look no different than the liberals who want President Trump assassinated right now. So death is death, no matter how you want to split that hair. So when they're rooting for President Trump to die and you're rooting for Hillary to die just for the death's sake, it's the same thing. So how do you split that hair? How do you justify that? Because they're making justification on their side. All right. So what I'm saying is you don't cheer for that. the fate is coming no matter what. So we have to get through all this other stuff right now to establish, look, here's what the principles were supposed to be, and were always were way back here. Here's where they were hijacked. All right. So when you look at the law of war manual, when it talks about a prisoner of war, you give them water, you treat them with that. I'm not saying you smile at them and go, oh, I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you treat people with dignity up till their fate. And that's how all of our founders did it. That's also when they were hanging people in Texas for stealing horses. They still gave them a last meal. They still gave them a chaplain. All right. So when you have this attitude out there, even any kind of heinous crime, it's still heinous. Absolutely. And it's sickening. And yes, they should meet their fate. But when we get to this idea and we go back to where we establish a foundation and we're teaching people the right way accordingly, all right, from a child up, like the Bible talks about, when we're establishing principles and we keep that at the forefront, we're less likely to have the atrocities happen because we won't have people in there with a mindset of money first, the lust of money, and the lust of power. That's what's happened to us. That's why we have all these people who are running rampant on their own and no accountability. So I'm not saying not to have punishment. I'm saying that anybody who's rooting, just wanting to see justice from the death standpoint, all these people want to see people hanging. No, you don't. I can assure you right now, you don't want to see that kind of stuff. All right. We don't need to see that kind of stuff. So you need to see punishment, but you don't need to be rooting for a bullet in someone's head. I mean, that's the stuff that I'm talking about, because it's the same thing the liberals want done to President Trump, and they have no basis or foundation. And even if you have a basis or a foundation, you shouldn't root for that kind of visual. The atrocity took place when we let this nation go with the ideologies of what we're supposed to look like on a daily basis. I've been a good person my whole life. My records prove it. Everything proves that. And there's a lot of people in here whose records prove that. We don't get a trophy for being a good human being. All right. But we also shouldn't be giving trophies out to people to say, hey, man, we know, put them on a hanging strand and hang them right in front of everybody. And let's root for it. That's not humane at all whatsoever.
Well,
and I'm not a tree hugger. I'm not a tree hugger, and I'm not anything like that. I'm not someone who's a softie or anything like that. I'm saying that we got to establish back in society that, hey, stop rooting for wars. Stop bragging about wars. Stop bragging about killing. Stop bragging about these things. They were never supposed to be bragged about. My grandpa never talked about World War II. Every Vietnam veteran I've ever met, they don't talk about it. They don't go around going, I served 5 tours in Afghanistan and I'm a blah, 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 blah. That's what you hear with all these young generations. They brag about war. And it was never supposed to look like that.
Well,
so
that's not what if I came across that way, that's not what I meant. People should be punished for whatever they did. Absolutely. And that's going to happen. But we have to get that left side over there to see the difference in punishment of heinous crimes and all the other things that's been done versus what they think is being done right now. And so a lot of Republicans and conservatives do have that attitude. Let's hang them all, hang them and do this and do that. It's one thing to say, man, they need to meet punishment. They need justice. Yes, they need arrested. Absolutely. But they've already been detained. If they weren't detained, first off, if Obama and Bill and Hillary and George had free roam, these Democrat events, rallying. All right, so they've already been detained. And what I'm saying is that this is an operation, but because we have soldiers, and I know a lot of them, I served with them, that served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and served in Bosnia, Kosovo, Somalia, Syria, Lebanon, etc., all the way back to Korea, the ones that are living. All right, they took a call to action to fight, but the wars itself were all BS. We had no right to be in Vietnam. We had no dog in that fight. Lyndon Johnson and all that bullcrap. And everything just started all these deep state, bureaucrat, swamp bullcrap. All right. And that started the military industrial complex. And all these guys went in the military for money and jobs and stability and college and all these benefits, which are what? They're privileges. They're not rights. They're privileges to being in the military. Same thing what President Trump's doing with all the gays and the trans. He's not telling people they can't be gay. And he's not telling people they can't go chop their you-know-what off with their own personal doctor. He's just saying, look,
When you go in the military, you adapt to the military. It don't adapt to you. So see, all these principles are being reset and reestablished. And we got to be delicate with it because a lot of men did and women took that call to serve. But it was what the bureaucrats were doing with the power and the authority and put them in places that they never should have been. So we got to be delicate with that. But yes, there should be punishment, but we got to reset that whole narrative for the future. And President Trump just made a very bold comment, just a couple of days ago, which is all planned. So I know it's true and accurate because it's all a plan. Everything he says right now is all part of the pre-plan, the pre-drafted PEDS. But he said our ammo's back up and our stockpile of ammunition and weaponry, but we will never have to use them again. That's a big comment right there. So it's saying there's going to be peace all over the world. All these nations, what everybody's watching right now, you will see justice. All right. But it's got to be in a place where everybody is in a place of humble, almost on their knees, maybe on their knees, but especially the liberals out there who are yelling for his assassination. I screenshot stuff daily by liberals out there saying, oh, I woke up and he's still not dead today. And oh, someone needs to put a bullet in his head. The stuff they're saying just freely on the internet.
That will come back and bite him in the ass. It's going to come back and bite him in the ass.
When they see that's right. But when they see a Republican saying the same thing about Hillary, then they can't see the difference. And that's what I'm saying is that think that in your mind if you want to. Great. If you want to see someone hang, I'm sorry. I'm sure I've seen people die personally. I don't think you want to see that. All right. But if you want that, I wish it all on you. And I hope it haunts you when it does haunt you. All right. So you shouldn't want that on anybody. All right. Justice is a hell of a note. And
well, I don't want that. I don't want that.
Well, I'm just saying it's that jealousy. Well, jealousy is a hell of a note, right? Meaning like it's that what these people have done is a hell of a note to walk with already. So I'm just saying that all this stuff out there, like it when you think of death, it is final. All right. And God gave us already the command already, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It's already difficult as it is to take that full command. But that's why it's also commanded too, to same thing. You know, you got to treat them with dignity up until the end. And that's all I'm saying is that in order to reset all this crap we've been through, in order to reset that other side, to exonerate President Trump on the other side, then all that hate and mockery and ridicule that you're seeing, that just vicious, malicious, I mean, what they're saying and doing, there's got to be something that separates it. And all I'm saying for patriots out there and Republicans and conservatives is like, keep that stuff to yourself. Don't
It's
say
called
that.
law and order, everybody. Trump's doing it lawfully. So I
Well,
know
yeah,
everybody. I know everybody's enough is enough wants to see the arrest, but I think what people need to understand there's four of the biggest arrests that we've seen with Diddy, Epstein, Ghislaine, Weinstein. Just because we're not seeing the ones that we want, it's coming. But just hang in there, everybody. Thank you, Best Press. All right, everybody. Derek is here every 2 weeks, so he'll be back here with us in 2 weeks, same time, same place. If everything permits. I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing a lot of activity in the sky over here in Arizona. We've got some fighter jets flying over where I live, and the military guys are kind of standing on the edge with their guns. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I think they're doing some training. But Trump is coming home early from the G7, and he has told NSC, I think, to get prepared. So we know something's coming, everybody. But it's like Derek says, it's got to bring people to their knees, and I absolutely agree, 100%, for people to finally wake up. So with that, Derek, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
I should be here. I'll be around somewhere.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys, and everybody come back Wednesday. We'll have 3 shows, one Dallas, and then Silk, and then Friday we'll have Alpha Warrior. So with that, everybody have a great night. God bless you all, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, Derek. Thank you.
Sounds good. See everybody soon.
Bye, Derek.